Here.
Mr. Gilmore. Here. Mrs. Piper.
Here.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Here.
Mr. Shellenberg.
Here. Entertain a motion to set the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gilmore, second please.
Second.
Ms. Voorhees, thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Gilmore.
Aye.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Aye.
Mrs. Piper.
Aye.
Mr. Shellenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Sell.
Yes. Reception of the public, who's first? Mr. Stewart, Mr. Dwyer.
PA doesn't have really roots here.
School year's going well.
Went well, only met twice, our executive committee, so we've got some things planned later. We'll bring that up. As a CEA group, doing some things to keep our name out in the community.
Okay, good, thank you. Let's see, Mrs. Henderson, are you here? She is not. Mr. Lukey, ELO, and Mrs. Stanmeyer, you have a little report for us, presentation.
I have a handout here for you. Take one and pass it down. I do, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I don't know if
I have
Mike's.
a cold, so I can't, I don't know how loud I'm talking. It's all my ears.
Is the button on? Didn't sound like it.
It is on? Okay, all right, better. Well, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to share with you guys kind of our special education numbers and what we are working with within our district and students that, under the special education department that we're responsible for. So I kind of broke down my presentation by building first. So you can see in kindergarten, we have 26 identified students, and that could be a range of speech and language students, it could be a range of specific learning disability, it could be any of the disability categories in kindergarten. So we have 26 in kindergarten, we have 32 in first grade, and as you can see, we have 35 in second grade. That's not unusual to see the numbers go up like that. As students go through school, obviously if they're not learning as a typical peer, some of those struggles might not surface in kindergarten. You know, as the students get older, their disability, their differences will become more apparent and will need more specially designed instruction.
Where are we compared to last year, Tracy, with the same grades?
We are about the same. That will be later in the presentation also. If you flip to the next page, elementary, you can see we're at 38. Very similar to what we were in second. We do go down in fourth grade. I do believe fourth grade is a smaller class though, so that is kind of why you see a dip there. Fifth and sixth, we are still hovering around that 30 mark in each grade level. So we got 33 in fifth and 33 in sixth for a total of 66 students identified in that building at this time. If you look at the next page, the third page, we'll have middle school. We're hovering still at that 36 for 7th grade, 36 for 8th grade. Okay, very similar numbers there. And then at the bottom of the page, you'll see our high school. We have 9th grade, we have 40 students, 33 in 10th. 11th grade, we have 28, so our numbers do go down a little bit there. And then 12th, we are back up at 38. The transition students, when students receive services on an IEP, they are eligible to receive services until they're 22, okay? So we do have 7 students within our transition program, and 5 of those students currently do receive their services over at the Coldwater Transition Unit, where they're working specifically on job training, trying out different jobs, things like that. And we do have some students that stay with us in Mrs. Meyer's classroom at the high school and receive their job training there. This is a number that in the future, hopefully, might change a little bit with our addition to Mr. Stewart's program, that hopefully by the time they are seniors, they are ready to be competitively employed in the community.
Do we
That's
have any-
definitely our goal.
Do we have any 22-year-olds currently in the transitional program?
Yes, once they turn 22, they're gone. Yeah. The next page there is just kind of a district perspective by disability categories. We have our MD, which is our multiple disability. We have our deafness. We do have 9 students within our district that are hearing impaired. SL stands for speech and language. We have 79, and mostly that number will be found in your lower grades. Kindergarten, first, second, and third, fourth. Sometimes by the time they get to 4th grade, 5th grade, that's when we start to see kids dismissed off their IEPs for speech and language. OH is orthopedic handicap. ED is emotionally disturbed or disability. ID is intellectual disability. We have our specific learning disability, which is next, which is what the majority of our population is. ASD stands for autism. OHI means there is an other health impairment that's affecting their ability to access the curriculum. It could be a severe case of diabetes. We have 2 kids within our district that have cystic fibrosis that severely affect their learning. It could be some kids that have severe anxiety. So your other health impairment could be any type of medical diagnosis that's interfering with their learning. And the last one is TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. All of our units or classrooms across the district are what we call cross-categorical. So a classroom could have ED students in it, but it also could have OHI students in it. If somebody has oppositional defiance disorder and that's affecting, they have that medical diagnosis from a medical provider. So like if you see there's 17 MP students, you might think, well, why do we need so many classrooms if we just have 17 students? Our classrooms are all cross-categorical. So some of our MD classrooms have MD, but they might have traumatic brain injury students in there. They could have students who are autistic in there also. So there's a lot of different varieties in all of our classrooms. Other information I just kind of threw in there that I thought you guys might find interesting. I did kind of sort it out by EMIS code. So we have a lot of our students are what we call active students. We have 7 identified students at our Alternative Learning Center. We have 10 students that are foster placed in. Okay. We have, sorry, my numbers kind of got off center there a little bit. We have 8 students that are foster placed out. So they could be at a residential facility or in another foster home. 5 non-resident, and then other at IC. IC is a John Peterson provider, meaning that some students who are maybe a specific learning disability or other health impairment, traditionally in the past did not receive services from IC for those type of disabilities, but now with that John Peterson scholarship, IC is providing services to those type of students. And since they are Salina residents, my responsibility is to make sure that their evaluations are done in timely fashion and that their IEPs are written. I am still responsible for writing those students' individual education plans, and our school psychologists are still responsible for conducting those evaluations. I do have 48 students that open and roll out of Salina and go to neighboring districts. So I have the responsibility to attend those meetings when I can. They invite me, and if I'm free, I do go to those.
Do you have any students open enrolling in?
That's what the non-resident is. 5.
Those 5 are, okay.
Yes, yeah. Preschool population also, we do have 45 students that are identified receiving some type of special education service in preschool. Their handicapping categories are different than school age. So you can see they do not have as many. The difference there is developmental delay, and we do not have that as a school age disability category. So you can see that there. The last page is kind of a historical perspective. The state wants you to keep your population of, or their goal, they tell us, is to keep our population around that 12 to 18%. And you can see in 2014 and 2015, we were at 16% identified. And in 15-16, we were at 17, and currently we're at 17% of our population that are identified.
So
You have a
the-
quizzical look, Mr. Gilmer.
So the state gives us a directive saying
They
they
give
want
us
to.
a goal, you know. Everything is always a team decision, it's individualized, so it's, you know, each individual meeting, you base the decision if a student qualifies on that student's need. We cannot go by, oh, we are at 13% now, we can't identify anymore. That's just kind of a goal they'll say.
So if we get to 18%,
Nothing happens,
Okay.
no. There's no type of,
Where did they come up with that?
I don't know.
Tracy, what's intellectually impaired?
It is a below average IQ, so anybody that'll be around 70 IQ or below.
The state goal, is that a goal to keep it under, or that you, the maximum that you?
We'd want to keep it around
for
there.
12 to 18%. What if we only had 8%? Would they say we're not identifying properly?
I don't know, I really can't say that for sure. They might say that, I don't know. I've never heard of anybody in that type of situation,
If
so,
we were at 25%, would they say, hey?
yeah,
what's
they
going on?
might. Yeah. And the last little piece of information there, I just wanted kind of to update you on the amount of evaluations that our school psychologists do in 2013 and 2014. We did about a total of 158 evaluations that could range from a speech and language evaluation all the way to maybe somebody who is suspected of being on the autism spectrum or somebody who's suspected of having a specific learning disability. And in 2014 and 2015, we were up to 181, and last year we did 207 evaluations. So you do see an increase there. Not all students qualify when we do an evaluation. There are students who do not qualify, but I contribute the increased evaluation just to the different needs that are developing within our district with ELL. We have, just other problems that are coming up also. So,
Thank you.
any questions? Thank you.
Are you going to discuss ELL more?
Jason.
Okay.
And Rachel, I'm gonna ask her.
For an invitation.
I think. Good evening. I have asked Rachel, and Rachel kind of volunteered to come and talk tonight as well. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the program. We are talking about English learners tonight, kind of where we are with that. I know I was here last year about the same time and gave an update. And quite a few things have changed. Some have stayed the same. So one thing that's a little bit different, you'll hear us start to refer to it instead of English language learners. The federal government has changed the terminology now to English learners. So we've dropped an L, shortened it a bit. So sometimes we'll still say ELL, so English language learners, or ESL, but the federal government is now referring to it as EL. Something that surprises a lot of people, I know we have, and everyone knows we have a lot of Marshallese students here, but we do have 17 different languages represented in our district. That doesn't mean that our students are fluently speaking 17 languages, but between home languages and native languages, and then what languages they speak now. We do have 17, I've listed them here, obviously Marshallese and English are the two predominant ones. Looking at kind of a K through 12 perspective, On the next page there, I've got a graph of kind of how many students we have per building. We are heavily concentrated with numbers at the primary and the elementary school. Looking at the middle school, that's the smallest number, but probably the highest need as far as academic and where the students are. So the numbers don't always tell the whole picture. You know, we really have to get to know the students and what their needs are and where they are academically and with the language. We do have 19 students that are in their first year in U.S. schools, 9 that are in their second year, and then 41 that have been in the U.S., not necessarily Salina, but in the U.S. for longer than 2 years. 9 that are classified as what the state calls mainstream, which means that they've been here longer than a couple of years and have done well on some of the language assessments. We did add this year 13 students from the end of last year to the beginning of this school year. So we did add a significant number. Now that takes into account our kindergartners. I think we added 4 or 5 kindergarten students. Several throughout different grades. Certainly some high schoolers, middle schoolers, and intermediate school students. So we are way up in our numbers this school year. Historically speaking, you know, back in 2012, about 1% of our students were English learners. This year, over 3% of our students are English learners. The state doesn't give us a goal like they do for special ed, but the state average is 2.7. So we are now above state average. Last year at this time, we were at about 2.5%. So, just in talking with, I just talked with someone down at ODE about that, and they weren't really aware that we had such a high percentage here. And so I am working with them now on getting some professional development brought in and some extra assistance from them and some of those things. As far as services that we offer, we try to do inclusive tutoring and teacher support K through 6, so that means we do have some tutors. And I've kind of listed our staff out here. Jill Harris has been with us for a number of years. She does the primary building. Dawn Adams works over at the 3rd and 4th grade building. Kelly Grisha, we just brought on here recently, and she's fewer hours than the others, but she's working at the 5th and 6th grade building. Of course, we have Rachel this year helping us out for this school year as our teacher, and she works mostly at the 7 through 12. And at 7 through 12, we really try to focus on a language instruction course. So with those students that are the highest need, we're working on teaching them the basics of the language and the reading and that sort of thing. And that's where Rachel is a really good fit, having the background as a reading teacher. And then we do have Jackie Greger. She is a teacher assistant, and she works primarily out of the intermediate school right now. We also we use some online services. We have Reading Horizons. I know the special ed department uses that as well, and that's an intensive reading intervention program that works really well with English learners. And also we have iPads for the program, and obviously in the classrooms as well. There's some translation and other app-based services that we use for our students. Sort of the process, I won't bore you with all of the details, but when the students come in, they fill out a whole language survey. If anything other than English shows up on the survey, we put them through an assessment called the Woodcock Munoz Language Survey. That is a state requirement. We give an assessment. It's a screener. The state doesn't offer one, so we have to have our own, and that's the one that we use. Then we offer the student services if they qualify, okay? And then every year they take what's now called the OELPA, used to be the OTELA, but it's the Ohio English Language Proficiency Assessment. And we took it in March, and we still don't have scores from the state, but based on scores that we get on that, students can test out of the program, depending upon how well they do. But that's how we can phase them out of the EL program. Looking towards the future, again, I referenced the professional development. I am working with ODE on trying to bring some professional development to our area to help our teachers and to help us with meeting the needs of the students. We are looking into and have been looking into translation of some of our static school documents. It's too expensive to translate everything that we would put out there, but some of those things that are the same every year, including our parent notification letter, we'd like to translate those into some of the more commonly spoken languages. Summer enrichment is something that we've been talking about, and we'd like to get up and running this upcoming summer. And then, of course, staffing is always a concern and something that is always a changing need for our program as students move in and out of the program. So, and like I said, going back to the historical figures, we are on the rise. For the last couple of years, we had kind of stayed static. We have a big influx this year, and I don't see a lot of change there. I mean, it looks like we're going to see students coming in from other countries. So, that being said, do you guys have questions for me? I'm going to turn over to Rachel. She's going to talk a little bit about what she does in the classroom with some of the students.
I do before we.
Yes.
What type of a diploma does an EL student receive if they stay in the program the entire?
If they meet the graduation requirements, they'll get the same diploma that every other student does. And that is one of the big concerns, and Mr. Metz and I talk about it all the time. The students that move in, that are in middle school or high school, that's the biggest challenge for us as far as diploma is concerned, and being able to get those requirements met. Because they don't offer a lot in the way of excusing the students from the tests or anything. I mean, it used to be they were excused from the reading test for a year. That is not the case anymore. So we could have a student move in a week before the test starts, and we have to give them not only the Woodcock Munoz, but also all of the state tests. And in high school, they're expected to pass all of those.
And there's no pass-fail option, anything like
There's
that?
no pass-fail option.
And those tests are in English.
And those tests are in English.
No.
There, sometimes they will offer a translated version. Usually that's in Spanish or a language that's spoken a lot in Columbus, maybe. Marshallese is not on their radar. I've asked.
In the region,
Yeah.
Creole, or any of those. I had a question about the funding for your Tracy. Is that a weighted funding for special ed and the, what?
I'll answer up from the EL perspective first. So there is Title III funding that's available for English learners. That does come from the federal government. And if you're below a certain amount, they make you belong to a consortium to access the money. This is the first year that we've had over that amount, so we get the money directly from the federal government. And it's not intended for staffing purposes, it's intended for enrichment programs like the summer enrichment. That's where we bought the iPads from, where we paid for professional development, that sort of thing. So that does come. And then also, and maybe Tom can answer the question better than I could, I don't know if there's another spot, but I know that there is a little bit of weighted funding for the students from the state of Ohio, and it's based on where I said that they're either a first year or second year, they've been here for longer than 2 years, or they're mainstream. So those are the 4 funding categories. We get weighted funding, but the ones that have been here longer than 2 years, the last time I checked was like $600 a student, I think.
It's not a lot.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's 600.
So if X equals the funding we get for regular ed students, how much more? We get X plus $600?
Yeah,
Because we're state share, maybe half now.
It's not a lot.
it's not much.
It's not much.
How much federal money do we get? Is that a percentage?
I don't know if it's a percentage, but the threshold, I will say, is $10,000. So if you're below 10,000, you belong to a consortium. And it's roughly like $180 a student. I could be off a little bit there, the last time that I checked.
And when you talk about the summer enrichment, you can't mandate that though, can you?
No, we can't mandate it. What I would like to do is offer something that would kind of piggyback off of our summer school that we've done, which we actually called summer enrichment this last year, where we brought the students in 2 days a week. And we did have some English learners in that group of students. I would just like to really make a push to invite more of those students and get more of those students involved. And our regular summer enrichment is K through 6, so I'd like to extend that a little bit more to some of the older students as well. To help with things like meeting the graduation requirements and, getting those students ready to be in the workforce and the community.
As far as special ed goes, it depends on how a student is identified. Speech and language, you get your least amount of money for. Multiple disabilities, autism, you get more funding for them. And I can't recall off the top of my head what the percentage is or how it's, calculated for each disability category. It's different. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Tom, what it is.
It's like 6 different categories that they have.
Yeah.
Ranging from 1 point,
It just depends on how much services those
I
students
doubt
need
it's that high,
not that high.
but it's weighted.
Right.
based on their disability category.
But would any of them max out the whole 50,000?
I can't answer that
for these people here. They've known me probably longer than you and I have known each other. Right, Cindy?
Right.
Partners in crime, something like that.
Yeah,
But-
I've been to that.
I do want to just be candid right off the bat. I did invite myself. Jason came in to take pictures and things, and he was telling me I have to go to the board and I'm going to make a presentation. And I said, you need to tell them this, or don't forget to tell them this, well, what? And then he finally said, you want to talk? Yes, I do. Yes, I would like to talk. So he said, we have 5 minutes, Rachel. I'll take 3, you take 2. And I said, okay. Now, but don't forget this. And he said, okay, you take the 3, I will take the 2. He took all 5 of ours, so right there. So I will make it quick. I'm not the numbers person. You guys have the facts here. I'm just here to put a story and a face to what I'm doing. Now, the elementary and things, they have a different story. They have different needs. But I have this is my oldest coming out, junior high. I have the middle school and the high school students. Some of these kids have been here for 3, 4, even 6 years. And you would think, as I did immediately, oh, well, they've been here 6 years. But when you go home and you speak your native tongue all the time, 6 years is not very long. They have 9 months, 6 hours with us, and that's where they're getting their English at. So there's not a lot of progression on some of these kids. We had a family come in, I believe it was 2 weeks before school, from Pakistan. They speak Urdu. This is what we're dealing with right now. So at the middle school and the high school, I try to use the 3 A's, and Jason and I have spoken of it. There's not a set curriculum. Yes, we use Reading Horizons every Wednesday. Yes, we do our writing. But other than that, I am their EL teacher. So we do a lot, and my main job, I look at it, is language acquisition. And what is that? You hire the best person you can hire. It's to talk, and we talk, and we talk, and we talk. Because how else are they going to know homophones, homographs, homonyms, idioms? I mean, all those kinds of things. Not to speak of a silent K, the PH, the GH. All of those things that we take for granted, and even when you're teaching small ones, it's a very natural progression. It's not when you're 17. It's not when you're 15. And it just adds to the confusion. So what I try to do is the 3 A's. First, we affirm. Absolutely. Find your country on the map. Tell us where you're from. How long have you been here? What are your neighboring countries? What do you speak? What do you eat? What do you dress? We affirm. The next one is appreciate. Everybody in those EL classes with me, that's a safe place. There's nobody better or not, or we don't get into religion, we don't get into that. We are there to appreciate each other's differences and appreciate everything that America has to offer. And the last one is to assimilate. You are in this country. How can we help you? How can I help you get the most out of this country? And they are very eager to learn. So what we've done, every day we begin with an open question. They have to answer in a complete question, and I use the words subject, predicate, noun, verb. Give me a complete sentence, which is hard for them, which is very difficult for them. They're getting to be so great at it, though. How was your day? My day was fine, Mrs. Schleifer. How was your day? I use my family a lot. Sorry, Mrs. Hodge, but they know your picture, and they'll always say, how is your girl over teaching school? And that, and they're asking about Mrs. Hodge in 3rd grade. Because I show them pictures. They know I'm a grandma. God bless the one little guy, he said, I can tell. And he went like this. I said, are you saying I have wrinkles? Yes, he was, and that's okay. That's what kind of atmosphere we have in that class. And I did borrow something from Mrs. Hodges. Fun Friday. Now you might say, you're teaching middle school and high school. That's okay. You have to be able to use the experiences that we do Monday through Thursday. So on Friday, we do something totally different. It was milkshakes. There's been pizza. Buster bars, and I found out that most of the Marshallese do not like peanuts or any kind of nuts. Things like that. This Friday, and I'm so excited about it, we are taking, Mr. Lukey and Mr. Hirschfeld and myself, we are taking the high school kids to the Willow. American food. But here's the thing. They have to order themselves. They have to go up, they have to speak, they have to order, they have to please and thank you like that. It is terrifying them. There is no menu that I can pass out, so I told them I will go take a picture of what Scott has on his wall. We will look. They will not go in there and order if they do not, if they're unsure of themselves. They really are terrified to do this. So we're trying to provide them safe places to go and do that. And what's more American than Scott Anderson's Willow, American food like that? And that we'll be doing things. Mr. Gilmore, don't think that you're going to get away scot-free, because I heard that you were the bomb at the courthouse speaking about that. I mean, I heard you did an awesome job. I hope to meet you there so that you can talk us through those kind of things. And it's a small group. That's what we're hoping to do. That's what I'm doing. And through that, it's almost like when you are rearing your children. Can you put a day on when they learn manners or when they were polite? No. And that's what it is with the ELL kids at the middle school and high school age. It's a slow progression. But we'll look back in May and see that we made progress. Can I get somebody that's reading at a 2.3 level up to pass the OGTs? Probably not. Probably not. But we are giving it the best try we can because we are starting here and the state wants us to go here. But in that progress right there, they will have a lot of learning experiences and they will, get better. Just one real quick one. We're reading a book. They love this. They love to be read to. It doesn't matter what age you are. And it's an old favorite of mine. It's called The Sign of the Beaver. It's Elizabeth George Spear. If any of you have read it. It's in early 1800s. And a boy is taken to Maine with his father and made to stay there while his father goes back and brings the rest of the family. He has to fend for himself. There's Native Americans there, and they join up with the boy. And I keep telling the kids, find the parallels. Do you see? You're Matt. You might be Atian. You're these guys. You're forging your way in here, making new friendships. And the irony of it is, this is me. I found a whole new way of thinking working with the EL students. They are now Matt. They are teaching me so many things every day, and I tell them that. I'm learning so much from you. But open invitation. Anybody, please come. Watch our classes like that. And they'll be quiet at first, but when they get to know you, they're just a precious group of children. They really, truly are. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
And if I can just piggyback off a couple things that you said. First of all, obviously, the teachers that are involved in our program have a lot of passion for these students. Every single one of them that we bring into the program, I think Rachel was a little hesitant at first. Dawn Adams was a little hesitant to come in.
I was retired.
But once they get to know the students and get to know what we're asking them to do, it is a really neat opportunity, I think. And I would invite anybody to come in and observe and watch. And I get a high five from Mighty every day when I come in. And so it is a lot of fun. I had something else I was going to say, but I can't.
I do just want to add that the administration and the staff of the two buildings I am at, and here's this one of the teachers, are absolutely amazing. They change, they modify, they give extra time. They are wonderful working with the EL students. Truly, truly wonderful. If I interrupt Mr. Metz's lunch one more time, he's probably going to say, oh, here she comes, and like that. But he's always willing to
Well,
listen.
and I don't know, I didn't share this last year because I think I kind of found out a lot about it after I presented at the board meeting. But Terry Wesker is at the primary building. I just have to share this story. She had a Spanish-speaking student last year, a first grader, and it just drove her crazy that she couldn't communicate with her. We had the iPad so she could do the translation. But Terry would go home at night. She has 3 or 4 kids herself. And after they would go to bed, she would sit down with a Spanish book that she got here from high school and teach herself Spanish. And, she said when she saw this little girl's eyes light up when she said things to her in Spanish, it made it all worth it. But those are the kind of things that, we see out of this program that are just, it is really rewarding, I think. And that's why we can get Rachel for the rest of the year.
Did you ever county your off, Rachel?
No, but that's okay. I'm not going for Bill Fest's record. I am not going to be 42 years.
Mr. Lukey, is there any federal monies available that we can send the iPads home with the kids and get the language in their home? I mean,
We do send some of the EL iPads home with some of the students. And if Google, and I've asked Google, by the way, to do translation into Marshallese, I didn't get a response. But I did ask. But we have sent it home with our Spanish-speaking students and students that, that would use it. For some of the students, they would rather rather try to do everything in English, you know, and so, it doesn't always work out that way, but we do send some of those that are, the iPads that are from our program, almost.
Thank you. Great
Thank
presentation.
you for the opportunity to talk.
I think we're ready for the motion and consensus agenda. Thank you. I'll second it. So we just, my laptop shut off, so I was scrambling for my purple agenda. We just had a motion and a second for the consensus agenda. Could we have the roll call, Mr. Sutton? No, I'm sorry. I got you. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Okay, I'm asking you to approve the minutes of September 26th regular meeting and the October 13th, 2016 special board meeting. I'm asking you to approve the September financial report showing approximately 1.6 million in revenues and about 3.13 million in expenditures. Also asking you to approve a summary of the cash and investments as of September 30th, 2016 with a minimum balance of $14,391,528.18. Asking you to approve the September checks written at just over $2.9 million. Asking you to approve the 2016 SM2 report. Also asking you to approve a resolution providing for the sale and issuance of not to exceed $17 million of TriStar Career Compact classroom facility bonds and authorizing matters related thereto. And the last item that I'm asking you to approve is the October 2016 five-year forecast. I would just like to make a couple of comments. On the revenue side, basically 93% of our revenue is in three categories: property taxes and property tax allocation. I do predict those to remain fairly stable through the 5 years. And I had a conversation with Mr. Sell the other day about CAUV and also with Mr. Greatner at the county auditor.
Would you mind explaining that, Mr. Summer? What CAUV is and how it could impact the district's revenue?
The CAUV is the value that's put on farmland that's in the program. About, I think it's around 23% of our valuation is agriculture. So I applied because the last two revals, we've seen a significant increase in these values, which has generated additional income for the district. I, as a treasurer, I go to meetings and I'm hearing all these horror stories that we're going to see a significant drop in CAUV values this next reval. I spoke with county auditor. He doesn't believe that's going to happen. He believes it'll probably remain fairly stable.
If it does happen, what that means is that the school district will receive approximately 20% less from designated agricultural acreage.
Right. So what I did, I played with my forecast spreadsheet, and I just on Mr. Graper's advice, I just put in a 0 for no decline or no increase on the ag. And for our district, it would impact us by about $100,000
Per year.
Yeah. So
That figured into general property real estate, or?
yes,
Okay.
yes. But like I said, my forecast has a 20% drop in CAUV.
That's starting in 18.
Yes, it would start in 2018. That's the reval is in 2017. Property taxes, we start collecting on that in 2018. I do believe that residential property will go up in that reval, which will more than offset that 20% reduction that I have there.
Did you project that? Is that why there's only $100,000 difference?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Another big item is our income tax revenue. Again, the economy is improving, and I've got small to moderate increases reflected. I basically followed the prior treasurer's lead on that one. Still learning about this income tax, it's new to me. Then unrestricted grants and aid, which is the state foundation money.
And that's what we were referring to earlier when we were talking about certain students receive more of this money
Correct.
than other students.
It's weighted, but as Dr. Ken said, it's still, our state share index is about 53%, I believe. So even if it's weighted, we're still only getting 53% of what the state says.
And also, it's based on the economics of the school district's health,
It
right?
is.
So Indian Hill will receive very little, and Parkway will receive more than Salina. Is that correct?
It's very possible. I don't know their economic pictures, but yes, there are school districts where their state share is probably 10% or less. And other districts, you may find the state share index up around 90. On the expenditure side, the two biggest, 74% of our expenditures are between salaries and benefits. I do have the negotiated increases included in the forecast for personal services for this year and next year, and then after that, I've got a small increase built in to take care of possible negotiated increases and steps and educational advancements. For fringe benefits, the good news I can share is that this January 1st, our insurance consortium will not see an increase in medical or prescription drug premium. We've got a healthy consortium, good reserve balance, so the premium is not going to go up. Dental, which really is immaterial, is going up about 10%.
What do you mean it's immaterial? Just the amount?
The premium is, for a family, is less than $100 a month,
Okay.
whereas the premium on medical is $1,400 a month. So. Purchase services, that includes our open enrollment students going out, and those students going to community schools.
Anything that we have to pay someone else to educate our kids.
Correct. And that's about $1.8 million a year right now. We have about 257 kids going out to other schools and another 53 going to community schools.
What was the figure you mentioned before that, $1 million?
1.8 million.
Okay, what am I reading on? I see 5,297,88,888. That purchase service is that third line, 3.030.
Are you-
Am I on the right line?
Yes, 3.030.
Okay, my paper says 5,297,888.
Yeah, I'm just giving you some highlights of that amount. I'm not giving you the full detail of that. I'm just saying, of that 5 million, 1.8 million of it is
Okay.
open enrollment costs.
Okay, all right. What are the other things that goes for?
Well,
The other four, whatever.
there's another 600,000 that's just for utilities.
Okay.
And then there's any purchase services that the county ESC costs would be included in purchase
And how does
services.
this break down? I mean, you mentioned the open enrollment being almost a fifth of that. Is there any one area that takes up as much as that?
No, that takes
It's all
up the
just
biggest.
everything.
Takes up the big.
What's our net on that, by the way, Mr. Silver? I mean, how many students do we have? You said 300, but what's the net loss that we're experiencing for?
I believe that enrollment in is about 70. So.
But we had increased enrollment.
230 loss.
Okay, didn't we also have an increased enrollment in like kindergarten this year? Was that computed?
I don't know if it was just kindergarten. I know that, when I talked to you,
Enrollment.
we did have an increase in our enrollment this year. Some move-ins over the summer. But what we've gained,
Doesn't all say.
we've lost, so.
Okay.
And And I know those are just some highlights that I pointed out. Are there any other specific questions on the forecast that I can?
Well, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, you may not be able to answer, because remember I talked to you the other day about what was projected on the May five-year forecast? That was
Right.
on May 24th, and I realized we've changed our employees a whole bit, but several areas I see what was projected a month later. For instance, line 2.080 was projected to be 31,123,000, and fiscal year actual revenue was down $260,000. And is that just a fluctuation? And we don't have the five-year forecast in our material from what was projected in May to what was actually spent. Bottom line is, line 6.10010, what Mr. Davis had projected as a carryover balance, and correct me if I'm reading the wrong line, was 817,000. What we actually carried over was only 437,000. That's a hunk of difference, in my opinion, especially when we're looking, I mean, that's a shift of not quite $400,000. Where did he miss his target, I guess is what I'm saying, and what changed it from his projections? Because that will impact what's carried over to the next year, and I assume will impact the deficit spending that will be coming along.
And I did a quick breakdown of his May forecast numbers to where we actually ended up at the end of 16.
On the, is that 7A?
No, I've got a separate sheet here.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So you've got that by difference as to what? I mean, was it mostly more purchase services? Was it more expenditures? Was it less income?
Well, as you said, the revenue was 260,000 less than what
Okay.
he had said.
And expenses were 214,000 more, if my math is correct.
I got 119,000 difference.
Okay.
And there was close to $200,000 difference in purchase service and 200,000 in basically in supplies. Now, it was favorable in salaries and fringe benefits, what he predicted.
Okay.
Less there. But purchase services and supplies are the two big items that.
Okay, and I guess maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I'm thinking, I don't want to be an alarmist, but yet I want to be very cautious in how are we looking at projecting. I know it's a projection, but some of the things that we overspent in from what was projected last year to what was actually spent, is there a way that we can look at that and make sure we got it, if possible, tighter handle on where it's headed? Am I asking a very complicated question?
Well,
I don't really know.
The thing about it is, my forecast will start with what actually happened in 16.
Okay,
I don't play off that May forecast too much. So I've got the 2016 actual numbers, and then I work forward from there.
okay.
So I guess,
So in tech, then just disregard everything that was on the May forecast.
well, I don't know that you can disregard it.
Oh, okay.
That's-
But you're saying that the more actual factual would be based on what was actually spent and take it from there.
Correct.
Okay. Then my last question is on the grant in age. That's the state money.
Correct.
When we're projecting out what that will be, did we take in the decline in enrollment and that will go down accordingly?
Yes.
Okay.
I also have a question, Mr. Summer, on revenue versus expenditures. I think it's on 7A, page 3. it says revenue versus expenditures, and in 2017, you have our revenue at 31,585,000, and you have our expenditures at 31,167, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then we're inching up actually in expenditures, and we're going down in revenue in 2018.
Correct.
Is that number there for the revenue in 2018, is that reduced by the CAUV 20% figures that you were discussing earlier?
It would be reduced by a fraction of that, because 2018 is a fiscal year.
So it would go from, right, so it would be just 6 months of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
roughly 50,000 would be my guess, based on what I said earlier.
And also as far as like income tax, when is that up again? 21?
No, income tax expires 12/31/2018.
2018, so 12/31/2018. In 2019, then you probably have not figured in that income tax?
Well, you can see it shows you in the line.
I'm trying to look for that little green where it says new levies.
We collect the year behind.
Right.
Right, okay. So it'll still show up on 2019.
Well, would it for the whole year though?
Well, you can see it, the purpose for proposed renew replacement levies, there's $168,700.
Okay. Okay. All right, gotcha. I see it.
That's the money that's representing the income.
Okay. Okay, I see what you've got.
If it was not to be renewed, and would just let it go out by itself, that's the amount of money we lose going forward.
Okay, I see it. Very good. Anyone else on the 5-year forecast?
Tom, on your handout on page 16, the capital outlay, 3.050. We show the huge spike in capital expenditures in 2016, and then you kind of just take it back down to where, I guess, historic levels were. Did you take into account at all the Garmin-Miller forecast of what the building maintenance and repair is gonna cost?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not. The drop, and as I stated there, there was a large outlay for technology in the previous year.
Correct.
So I made the assumption that we weren't going to have that big of an outlay this year, so that's why it dropped back.
Well, we won't have a voluntary outlay, but I believe Garmin-Miller's assessment showed, was it $10 million?
Yeah, it was-
$10 million over the next 5 years.
New improvements.
So if those were factored in, obviously that would
Increase the percentage.
kind of mess that all up, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can go back and amend this as we go, as the year progresses. It's just the state requires one to be filed
Oh, absolutely.
by the end of October and
Sure.
May, so.
And I guess did have another question about the income tax. With Mercer County being at historic lows in unemployment, and I'm not, don't take this as questioning your business, because I'm not a treasurer, I'm not an accountant, but I guess when I look at that and I see that we have been at historically low unemployment for several years now, is it safe to assume that it's going to, that income tax is going to continue generating at the rate that it has been generating, or would we anticipate at some point a drop-off?
I would say as long as the economy's still going, people are getting paid, earning a living, because it's on earned income.
Absolutely.
So I would assume that it would keep going up. And I'm not jumping it by large numbers by any stretch of the imagination. I know when I look back at some of Nick's numbers, there were a couple of years where it really increased.
One thing I've learned from the reports that Amy Esser makes at Head Start is that even though our unemployment is very low, many of those people are, I think the term was underemployed.
Correct.
They have jobs and we're getting income tax from them, but not necessarily at the rate when we had all industry in town. Did we put any buses in this capital outlay? I know that was on one of the pages and I can't find it right now. We skipped the bus last year, right? Did we?
I don't have anything in there right now.
Okay. And those are about $90,000.
From those.
And, okay.
You get a couple of those.
The Lions are 110, lowest ones are 86,000.
I don't have any more questions.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Summer, appreciate it. Where are we, Mr. Giesecke?
Item 1 under personnel, recommended approval of the following substitutes for the 16-17 school years: Tom Mullenkamp, Crystal Wellman. Items 2 and 3, recommend the approval to accept 60-day probationary contracts for Kathy Bowman, secretary at the high school, Melinda Kaiser, Head Start bus driver. And the last item, recommend approval of a change of contract for Jane Wendell, cafeteria worker at the middle school, and she's requesting 5 deduct days. That's it.
Do we have someone replacing Kathy Bowman at the high school? Somebody bid into that?
Nobody bid into it, it was, their application, and they're looking at it.
Still, okay, so
Actually, there was some.
you're just without that person for the time being? You're without that secretary?
We're sucking that in.
Dr. Schmeezing, do we have a policy for, is there a maximum amount of deduct days that an employee can take?
No, there's not. That's,
I just will mention, when we hired her, she said, hey, I need a week off. So this was like kind of agreed on before she was hired.
Okay.
certainly each deduct day requires board approval. Under personnel, number 1, recommend approval of the following certified substitutes for the 16-17 school year: Deborah Van Gundy, school nurse; Todd Bevington; Madison Richling; Eric Whites. 2, recommend approval of a change of contract for Stacy Stetler, second grade teacher. She's requesting 1 deduct day on February 21st of 2017. Number 3, recommend approval of the following personnel for pupil activity program contracts for the 16-17 school year: Grant Dre, 7th grade girls basketball.
Is she a current employee?
Grant is not.
He. Okay, he is not, okay.
That's why it's a pupil activity
Okay,
program.
okay.
You have to already into the supplemental contract.
Under resolutions, number 1, approval to enter into the trademark license agreement with Hometown Creations. Number 2, approval of an overnight trip on a charter bus to Chicago, Illinois on March 9th for the high school art students. Number 3, approval of an overnight trip on a charter bus to Chicago, Illinois on March 31st, returning April 2nd for the high school choir students. The Head Start monthly report is attachment number 5.
Before we remove anything from the consensus agenda, I'm just going to ask briefly that, have we ever entered into a trademark license agreement with any other merchant or private
What
business?
did they do?
I don't remember ever.
And your answer, Dr. Ken?
Have you heard?
This is the first time that our attorneys have said that it's a good idea to have board approval on this as opposed to just having administrative approval. Mercer Savings Bank, they had some Spirit checks, so all the schools in the county signed off on those.
But like all of the businesses that sell the logo on anything, whether that be, you know, a Dogtown Walmart, a Shell station, do they need, do they have one, or is that something that needs to be, or is it just?
If they're currently doing this, no, we have not
Okay.
gone back to require it this
Mayor,
time.
I'm going to ask your legal expertise. The licensing agreement gives them exclusive right to make this.
This is specifically a non-exclusive license, the way I.
So anybody in his brother can make one of these things.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
We're giving them permission to do it, but we're not saying you're the only one that gets to do it. We could grant that same permission to,
That's what.
was the way I read it.
Somewhere in here it says that it's not exclusive, which I guess that makes me wonder why we are
Why are we
entering
signing?
into the agreement if someone else can copy the logo from some other store uptown and sell them to whomever. You understand what I mean?
Right, it's really trying to protect the good name of Salina City Schools. So then again, if they use it inappropriately, that we can pull this back from them and let them know that they don't have approval to do this.
I don't think that's.
We limited this contract to 2 years. We can extend it after that.
I guess my question is though, if a competitor wants to run something that is not necessarily reflective of our image, can we legally prevent them from doing so? They don't have a trademark license agreement.
Yeah, depending on what they would print, if it would be scandalous or libelous in some way, I'm guessing that yes, we could go after them for that. But this in and of itself has no bearing on anybody but Hometown Creation. That is correct.
And if it's non-exclusive, does that mean I could make one exactly like it and market it myself?
If we granted you that license.
I would have to ask for that.
Even though,
That's the precedent we're setting.
Okay.
do you have or did you bring a copy of what they were trying to license specifically? Do you have that? Wasn't there like an image that,
Yes.
where is it? If you don't mind. I want to know what we're approving, I guess.
But you could go online and print that out on your own computer and iron it on a t-shirt. That's what I'm saying. Is this really necessary? But you're saying it's just going to be
considered and trying to do things from.
That's correct, and that's what Sandy was looking for with this too, that she wanted to make sure everything was above water on this, was checking for our permission for it, so.
Well, I want to, just not to keep pressing, but I want to make sure that I understand. Can that image be reproduced by someone else?
Sure. Sure, it's But- readily available out there on the internet.
This is a new enterprise for Sandy, and I'm sure she's just, as you said, just trying
Trying to do it
make sure
correctly,
things
right.
are, yeah.
But I'm just wondering if we don't unnecessarily hobble her, where others may not be so hobbled
So,
in,
Others will not be as considered. Might not.
well, consider it, I don't know that we've ever made an issue of our trademarks or anything else. It's pretty much an open use policy, so.
Is it trademark? It's like a patent.
it says it should be, the licensee shall not be prohibited from interfering with the board's rights in the logo, including challenging the board's use, registration of, or application to register the logo. So they're not going to try to interfere with anybody else using that logo.
This language came from the attorney?
Yes. I think it's shooting a fly with a shotgun.
I would imagine that the goal is to try to have other vendors mirror this attempt to do the right thing.
That is correct. And any new businesses coming that want to do that as well, would be encouraged along the way also to pay it forward, or so to speak, pay it back by sponsoring different activities at the school. I believe Sandy will be a person that will do that.
Are we charging her for this license?
We are not.
Is it more or less just protecting her in case somebody says, hey, you have the rights to sell that?
That would be correct as well, yes. Last year with Mercer Savings Bank, we charged them $1.
Which you almost need something to have consideration for a contract to be valid.
For consideration. Anyone else? I'm not opposed to doing it because I think she's trying to do the right thing. At the same time, it just seems that there are so many other people that can copy it whenever they want to, that I hate to say it this way, but it seems almost unnecessary.
Well, I don't want to lock her down to this if we aren't also then going to undertake a push to lock the others who are selling Bulldog logo merchandise to a similar agreement.
I mean, she also does Ohio State, and I'm sure Ohio State
Oh,
is very stringent with their
that I can
logo, and
guarantee.
probably.
Yes, yes, and that's probably what caused her to
Yeah.
think that she needed something like that.
And can she do any other trademarks besides this?
Definitely.
But with the license agreement, we are just approving that particular one, correct?
We're just approving ours.
Our logo.
Right, but I mean.
But she could do
images
park
of-
base, she could do,
She can do that logo on any item she wants to do it on, right? It's the Bulldog itself that she's asking to use.
but she could do that as we demonstrated, with or without this agreement.
Anyone else?
As long as it's not infringing upon any of her.
Okay, let's move on to, what's the next on the agenda? TriStar.
Remove items from the consent.
I'll remove items from the consensus agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed?
I would,
Remove it?
remove and trademark agreement.
There's a motion to remove the trademark agreement resolution from the consensus agenda, which is resolution 1. I'll second that. There's a little 2 there. Roll call, please.
You're doing a roll call on the remaining consensus agenda, correct?
Yes. E, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Mr. Snell,
Yes.
Mrs. Piper,
Aye.
Mrs. Voorhees,
Yes.
Mr. Schellenberg.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, the trademark agreement. Discussion and action on this particular removal.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 1, the trademark license agreement with Code Foundation.
Second that.
Second by Mrs. Voorhees.
Now, discussion. If she finds that this limits her, can we rescind the agreement by mutual consent?
Yes, by majority vote of the board.
Okay.
I kind of wish you would have attended just so we could ask her these things.
I wonder if we're not just making it harder than it's meant to be.
Well, but you're dealing with the legal document.
Right. That our attorney has suggested that we do.
grant something like that without any fee.
Well, if there's no consideration, there's no contract.
So in order for that to happen, do we need to enter the agreement?
To get a hawk or a peppercorn or
$1.
What's that?
In kind.
In kind.
My recommendation would be that we
My vote.
charge her $1 so that there's an offer and consideration for the contract to be valid.
I guess for my part, if it comes down to a yes or a no tonight, I guess I don't understand what the rush is to approve this. I think she can start making those things whenever she wants.
She's hoping the orders.
She's not gonna be limited in that ability, even if we don't pass this. I guess what I would like to see is we double back a little bit and maybe get some more information on whether we even need this thing. Like I said, there are tons of merchants out there selling Salina schools merchandise, and in, 15 years, I have yet to see us approve one of these things. So I guess my question is, why this and why now?
I think she just wants our blessings to know that she is okay to proceed.
I like her doing that. I think that's noble, we'll put it that way. I think it's a good idea to try to do the right thing. It just seems that
But my
it's
issues
almost
are,
necessary.
the lack of consideration. Does this hamper her in a way that other businesses are not hampered? I didn't read through this thing with, a fine tooth comb. I just kind of breezed it, but, I would hate to see us approve something that limits her to X, Y, Z when everybody who does not have one of these documents can do A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. And she can't.
She does have in here, the licensee shall not assign the license granted by this agreement absent the board's prior written consent.
That just means if she sells the business, the license dies unless we renew it.
Okay.
So would you feel more comfortable if we tabled the whole action until more information is gathered?
Yeah.
How about charging her $1? Would you be okay if we did that? And then that way, at least it would be, in my mind, a valid contract to offer.
Which she's not here to accept that.
Well, that would
So
be-
that would be a unilateral change on our part that wouldn't become effective as a contract until.
She would be contacted.
Correct. So our action tonight, I would just assume, and I guess I'm not gonna belabor the point. I mean, if you wanna vote on it tonight, we can vote on it tonight.
I don't want to do anything that's going to restrict her or any other business from and having to do other. So I will just withdraw my motion, or does she have to withdraw her second or? And we'll table the item.
Just do it simultaneously.
Okay.
Okay, we both remove the motion so that it's not going to be considered tonight.
We stand up.
I can say to Dr. Kennedy to contact her and make sure that we get all those P's and Q's straightened out.
Just see who told her she needed this, or why she thinks she needs this, would be a couple of interesting answers, at least for me.
Mr. Shelver, you want to jump in here?
Like Matt said, I think it's a little overkill with this. I mean, she can go out and do it right now without anybody's permission. I mean, well, what's the,
Okay,
I don't even know why.
all right, moving along then. Other business by board and or administration, approval of change of contract for Sarah Piper, that's you.
Thank you. Item number 7, approve of a change of contract for Sarah Piper Darnell for the supplemental contract for 8th grade girls softball, moving and changing the years of experience from 0 years to 5 years.
I'll move that.
discussion. We'll need a motion in a second, but I think that's going to be appreciated by a lot of the public tonight. There's a motion, there's a second. This is to discuss personnel employment. Okay.
And we are coming back in here for a work session on the budget, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Gilmore.
Aye.
Mr. Shellmarter.
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
Piper.
Aye.
Mr. Sell.
Yes. Thank all these strong people for attending tonight.
There's Carol.
Yeah.